Good morning, friends. Writing from imprisonment in the city of Rome, Paul tells the early Christians at the city of Philippi that my God shall supply all your needs according to his glorious riches in Christ Jesus. I don't know what needs you have today, but I know there is one who has an adequate supply of resource to meet the needs that are in your life. You know, if you've driven by Central Assembly lately, you'll see in the 1300 block of North Boonville in Springfield wonderful church facilities. In fact, at the beginning of this program and end, you can see a picture of a church sanctuary. It was not always that way at Central Assembly. The first 12 years of Central Assembly's experience in Springfield, Missouri was spent in rented quarters, sometimes meeting in a rented room in the City Hall building, in the summertime meeting out in a tent. And it was in 1919, after the church had been in existence for 12 years, that the people of the church had a meeting to consider what they should do in regard to having a more permanent facility. The chairman of that meeting was then the general superintendent of the Assemblies of God, which only had recently moved to Springfield, Missouri. His name was E.N. Bell. As he began the meeting, he said to the congregation, let's talk about what the size of the sanctuary should be and how many people it should seat, what it should accommodate. And the church treasurer, a man by the name of Jim Coram, who was really the founding family of the church, said to him, Brother Bell, he said, we don't have any money in the treasury, and he said, I think before we start talking about building a sanctuary, we ought to talk about how we're going to afford it. And the general superintendent looked at him and said, well, he said, that's a good point, Brother Coram, but you know, I think it'd be best that we talk first about what needs we had for the sanctuary, so let's decide that first. And they talked a while and agreed on what the composition of the sanctuary should be. And then when they were done with that, the chairman of the meeting said, now, he said, we've decided how much space we want in the sanctuary, and we need Sunday school classes and meeting rooms for children, for youth, for adults, and let's talk about that. And again, the church treasurer, Jim Coram, said, now, Brother Bell, he said, we don't have any money, and we need to talk about money. And again, the chairman of the meeting said, we're going to get to that in just a minute, but let me talk, first of all, about the fact that we've got a Bible school coming to town, and we're going to need room for them. And the treasurer protested again. And Brother Bell said, we're coming to that in just a moment. And when they had decided on everything they wanted, the chairman of the meeting said, now, the treasurer has raised a good issue. He's raised the issue of where we're going to get money for all this. Well, he said, I think we ought to talk to the one who has the money. And with that, he stood up, turned around and knelt down and began to pray, and the whole congregation turned around with him and began to kneel down and pray and ask God to help them. And 1 year later, the entire new facility was up, and it was all paid for debt-free. They had learned that my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in Christ Jesus. That little story, I trust, will give you hope today as you consider personal needs in your life. It's his resources and not our resources that make the difference in our lives. It's a wonderful life when you know the Lord.